The Brad rules!
Tales of Venture on the Game Gear was a game that took me by complete surprise when I first discovered it on the Sonic Gems collection for the GameCube. Released in 1995, Tales of Venture flew under my radar completely, and surprisingly so. I knew about all the other traditional Sonic games for the handheld, Sonic 1, 2, Chaos, and Triple Trouble, but I didn't know that Tails actually had his own solo adventure. In fact, he actually had two, with the other being Tails Sky Patrol, a Japanese exclusive that had a completely different gameplay style. And while Tails Adventure was released in Japan in September of 1995, Sky Patrol oddly released 4 months earlier in Japan. It was crazy to find out that Tails actually had two games dedicated to him within the same year. Tails Adventure would actually be released in the States in November of 1995, so it was odd that it was the holiday season and I never heard of the damn thing, and being an avid reader of the Sonic Archie comics at the time, it was quite clear that Sega dropped the ball marketing this bad boy, because there wasn't a single ad for it across those many pages that I laid eyes on. So what exactly is this game about? Well, the developer Aspect, who did the 8-bit Sonic 2, Sonic Chaos, and Triple Trouble up to this point, could have quite easily made a standard platformer like all those games, but they wanted to do something a bit different with it. So Tails Adventure ended up being an exploration game with an inventory system with a Metroidvania-style design in which Tails must bomb walls, search for items, and solve puzzles. It's a really ballsy entry in the Sonic series that does things very different, and I like it. I like it a lot. Tails is on his own as he battles against the Battle Cocteau Army, which is a legion of birds that have begun attacking his homeland. Now, I love how in the US instruction manual, they lazily refer to them as the Bird Army, not even picking out a new localized name for them. Like, what about the Bird Legion, the Winged Legion, the Fine Feathered Finks, perhaps? Also, the island is called Coco Island in the Japanese manual, but in the US manual, it's called Tails Island. So apparently Tails came here and just said, fuck it, this is my entire island now. Also, the timeline is radically different depending on the manual you read. The Japanese one claims this story takes place before Tails met Sonic, and the US one says they've parted ways for a little bit of vacation time. Well, I have to say, if we're getting technical here, and I always do in my videos, the story makes more sense in the localized version because Tails was bullied and not a hero by any means before meeting Sonic and being inspired by him. So I really doubt Tails was so prepared to deal with an invading army before meeting Sonic. So what I really like about this game is it is basically an introduction to the concept that Tails is a scientist and has a laboratory which would be known to the mainstream come Sonic Adventure. Although in Tails Adventure, Tails is collecting all the items he uses instead of inventing them. Tails has a remote-controlled dog that can navigate tight spaces and can transform into a submarine, which is the same one he used in Sonic Triple Trouble. He has multiple bomb variants and can outfit his submarine with different types of weaponry as well. There's even items that Tails can use to mimic Sonic, Knuckles, and Fang's abilities. Yeah, even Fang, strangely enough. But these are all optional and you can complete the game without even using them. The stages in this game are not overly large, but there are many pathways and nooks and crannies to explore as you search for secrets. The level design isn't anything amazing, and the backgrounds and aesthetics are pretty average, but the gameplay is the key star here, and it's a lot of fun to explore and figure out what to do. Now, just because the environments look a little dull, especially for a Sonic game, that doesn't mean the graphics still aren't good. Tails' sprite is big, very solid looking and detailed. It's honestly one of my favorite sprites of him, and the enemies look good too. The animations are really nice, and I love that charming strolling walk cycle for Tails. And Tails still has the ability to fly, and you can fly for longer distances each time you collect a Chaos Emerald, and your health increases as well. Rings are used strictly for health, and you can't recollect your rings because they don't fall out of you like in the typical Sonic games. Instead, your ring counter will decrease when you take damage, and a different amount of health decreases depending on what damaged you. And there are no lives at all in this game. If you die, you will start from where the last password left you. Now, you don't need to enter the password, but if you're playing this on original hardware, you're going to definitely want to take a look at that password and jot it down before turning off the game, because it won't be shown to you unless you go to Tails' house and have a look for yourself. Everyone else should just use save states and save theirself the headache. The biggest problem you'll run into in this game is that Tails' inventory is limited to only 4 items, with the rest of what he's collected being stored in his house. And it can be a little bit frustrating getting to a part in a level and not having the correct item at hand, meaning you'll have to return to his house and swap out an item in your inventory for the one you need. There's a lot of trial and error, and it can be annoying because you can't simply just exit a level even if you've already beaten it without actually walking to the exit or entrance. Certain stages allow for shortcuts to get out fast and others don't. You should have been allowed to pause and hit a button to exit the level. This is needless busy work, but honestly it's not a deal breaker. We're only talking about mere minutes here. I really do like the idea of seeing an unreachable item or a barrier that cannot be destroyed due to your current arsenal. It leaves you with a high level of anticipation and mystery. What is that obtainable item, and what do I need to do to actually obtain it? You'll find yourself coming back to levels once obtaining new items and seeing if they're the answer to the problem. However, it would have been nice for the world map to show some kind of indication if you've collected all the items in the levels. There is no indicator, so if you forgot about what you saw in a level, and God forbid if you haven't played the game in quite some time after making a lot of progress, you're going to have to comb these levels over one by one and figuring it out for yourself. And this could have easily been rectified with a simple notation next to the level's name or color coding of some kind. This is a relatively big game, which most people will not complete in one sitting. Finding all the items, exploring and experimenting with your inventory to find the solution to progress will take time. And it's definitely a slower pace than what we were used to in a Sonic game. It's a good example of how well experimenting pays off in the Sonic franchise. And to those who say Sonic is just about going fast, here's yet another example of how that's simply not true. And it never was. It's also cool to see Tails fighting a brand new batch of enemies that have nothing at all to do with Eggman, but it still maintains that familiar mechanized threat alive and well, as the Cocteau army will come at you full force with battle mechs and even a giant battleship. Tails even kills their scientists with a fucking rock. Well, damn.
Lay low for a while, because you're probably wanted for murder.
The music is a bop, as we had come to expect in the Sonic series, even with the 8-bit entries. And here's a few examples of some of my favorite tracks. really special Sonic game because it took the exploration from previous Sonic games, slowed the action down, and took the focus off speeding through levels and pushed the exploration to the forefront. For a spin-off, this game is a winner, and typically it seems as though many Sonic fans are not too keen on this deviation from the traditional Sonic format, and I don't understand why, especially in retrospect. Tails is a different character than Sonic, not just a mere sprite swap, and this was definitely a game that did a good job at establishing that concept. It made Tails the slower, more methodical character who could be more than just Sonic's sidekick, who was always trailing a few steps behind him. I feel this style of gameplay would have been better suited for him than the racing and mech commandeering gameplay that was seen in the two adventure games. Instead, Knuckles received this style, although in a much different fashion. Oh, and if anyone is a taker on creating a 16-bit remake of this game, I'd absolutely love that. But so far, there doesn't seem to be anyone interested in doing so. So guys, let me know what you think down in the comments about Tails Adventure. Have you ever played it? And if you have, is it a game that you do hold in high regard, or do you feel that it was a deviation in the Sonic series that was just not worth doing? And please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bells to get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. Any donations that you could give on Patreon would be greatly appreciated. And I want to thank all my subscribers for your continued support. And thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.